Hey, what's up, guys? Christian Van Buren here. I am the co-founder of Ripple Effect Fatherhood. I'm excited about our next guest. Make sure you stick around as he dives into some major challenges that he and his family have endured over the years, and how he's overcome it, and how I believe the Lord has used him to bless so many people. And just to kind of give you an idea, this man and his wife have fostered over 29 kids since 2018. So make sure you stick around. For those of you that have been following our channel, we love you. We appreciate the support. For those of you that are new, make sure you hit the subscribe button on our YouTube channel if you're watching this. And then feel free to subscribe on all our podcasting platforms if you're someone who likes to listen to these as opposed to watching them. But as always, we're excited for you guys to benefit from this positive outlook and perspective on fatherhood. We pray that you share it because you never know whose life you could touch, whose life you could change by just sharing some positivity in their life. As always, thank you for being here and enjoy this show.
All right. Here we go. All right, Roman. So, man, again, very glad to have you on. I feel very blessed that you were able to make time to be on our channel. I've already read about you. I'm excited for our audience to get to know you. And again, like I said before we started recording, I just want to say from me to you, thank you for what you've done and what you're continuing to do as a father, but also as a husband, and just as a man in this society that we live in. Well, first off, obviously introduce yourself because I'm not even going to try to pronounce your last name. Okay. So if you want to just tell everybody what your name is and then just talk a little bit about what you do for work or for a living.
Yeah, Roman Prokopchuk.
Okay.
So obviously that last name is hard to pronounce. It's Eastern European. So I immigrated to the U.S. at the age of 5, turning 6, with 6 other family members in 1990 to a 2-bedroom apartment. Obviously, coming from a situation, technically, we came over as religious refugees. We went through Vienna, Austria, Rome, Italy, and then came here. That was kind of like what the process was. Went to school for criminal justice, interned with the Secret Service. Recession hit in '08, had to kind of pivot, got an opportunity. Somebody handed me a packet out of a trunk. It started a career in digital marketing,
Hmm.
founded an agency, also podcast. But outside of that, my wife and I have fostered 29 kids in 4 years. That journey kind of started with us going through 6 miscarriages in 4 years, some of which when we had, foster children in our home, some prior. So that's kind of, I guess, where I am and try to advocate and be a resource kind of for foster care reform because I see it from the other side, all the holes and
Hmm.
potential problems in the foster care system across the country and how that impacts the kids that, we've had and other kids obviously in the system.
Got you. Got you. Man, that's amazing. That's great stuff. I love it. And then okay, so you said you have a wife, and I guess let us know a little bit about your family structure, like your husband, father.
Yeah, so I'm married. We got married in 2014. So we met in 2012. We have 2 foster children right now. One went back and unfortunately came back in the system uh, from concern from us.
Hmm.
A lot of the time, foster parents, in terms of what they say, isn't really weighted in the process. And that's, a common frustration. So,
Right.
emphasizing that the biological mom had mental illness. They didn't address that. He went back, 4 to 6 weeks. He was back in the system. And, he's with us again since last August. The baby, well, not so much baby, but, almost a 2.5-year-old we got from birth straight from the hospital. He was there for a week.
Hmm.
They didn't know if he was going to make it. He was, had drugs in the system, had a detox, that kind of stuff. Had tough time breathing. And week 2, we got to bring him home at 4 pounds. And we've had him ever since, basically from birth. But at one time, the most children we've had were 5 kids under the age of 4, which is an interesting, setting with, trying to run a business, having a podcast, all other obligations. So kind of since June of 2018, really June 1st, when 2 kids were just dropped off at her doorstep, like figure it out. Up until now, we've had 29 kids.
Wow. Wow. I mean, I'm sure there's people that can relate, but honestly, I'm not one of those people. So just hearing that story is, man, very inspiring to me. The fact that you guys took that on. And so here at Ripple Effect Fatherhood, our aim is to create and expand a movement that inspires, promotes, and encourages the positive presence of fatherhood in the lives of everyone. And honestly, I'm really glad to have you on, because I mean, when I say everyone, I mean everyone. And what you and your wife are doing just really brings that to life. You know what I mean? You're providing a positive presence of fatherhood in the lives of, these kids that, otherwise probably wouldn't have it. Yeah. So as we dive into it, tell us a little bit about your heritage and I guess your initial experience. You touched on it, but like just kind of what that was like for you, just kind of coming to America in the beginning.
Yeah, so I'm first generation immigrant from Ukraine. Mainly, like, I did the whole whatever, what is it, ancestry.com or whatever
Mm-hmm.
test, and it comes back like 95% like Eastern European, like
Oh, wow.
Ukraine, that area. My parents were together ever since they got divorced in 2008. I was kind of brought up in the church. Right now, I think I consider myself non-denominational, kind of like stance wise, having a personal relationship with Jesus Christ. Like,
Mm.
religion doesn't save, having a personal relationship with Jesus Christ does. And it was one of those things. My dad, in my eyes, throughout my life, was never really quote unquote a Christian, because a lot of people put the label Christian but they don't live like Christ does. You
Yep.
have people doing this, that, or the other, and calling yourself something doesn't mean that's what you are. And I think that that's the illusion that I kind of lived with, in terms of, like, my father did whatever he really wanted to do. Still went to church, kind of, I guess, keeping up appearances, and cheated on my mom. Eventually, like, that caught up to him, and they got divorced in 2008. I haven't spoken to him since, or saw him in person, other than him sending me a check on my birthday in a blank birthday card every year, and a text message, happy birthday.
Mm.
That's, in the last, what is it, 2022? So the last 14 years, that's the only contact I've had with him. I think that impacted me in terms of, who I wanted to be or who I didn't want to be.
Mm.
Seeing how he was, I wanted to be a better person, and I guess a better role model, and a better father, and be present. Because, I mean, you have a choice to make. I often think about, circumstances. If there's two siblings, one, turn to, let's say, alcohol, drugs, and maybe he's locked up, and the other sibling successful, use that as a driver. So I try to use that, I guess, negativity or pain, and harness it into something positive.
Yes, man. That's first of all, I'm glad you brought up Jesus, man, because I mean, I couple things. First of all, I'm glad you brought up Jesus, because in my relationship with Jesus, I'm starting to learn, especially now that I'm a father, I'm starting to see more and more, or understand more and more, the details of my relationship with Jesus, because I see them in my son. I see them, and I see little things in the way I love my son, and it always brings me back to, oh man, like that's the way Jesus loves me. Like that's the way Jesus came through for me, or that's what Jesus wants me to see in this situation where I shouldn't be doing something that I'm, you know what I mean? Like just little stuff like that. But also something that you said was, just because you call yourself something doesn't mean that's what you are. And that really holds a lot of weight when you're talking about, people who call themselves followers of Christ. But as far as it relates to our topic, I think I'm glad you said that, because that's a big thing in our society today too, right? Like people can call themselves a dad or a father. And that's why in our mission statement we say the positive presence, right? Because you can call yourself a dad, you can call yourself a father, but if you have no acknowledgement, or if you're not being intentional about providing that positive presence, you know what I mean? Like then you're not living out what the title that you're giving yourself. And I want to make it clear, is that that positive presence doesn't mean you have a lot of money, or it doesn't mean your kids are in private school. It doesn't mean it means that you're doing the best that you can to be a positive male role model in your children's life. Those are your seeds. So I'm just glad you said that. That really stuck out to me, and that was huge as far as what it is the message we're trying to put out here.
Yeah, I think being present's important. I mean, the common denominator out of, 29 kids, majority of them do not have a father, don't know who their father is, or their father has not seen them in, I guess, ages, whatever the circumstances are. I mean, we've had situations where, children are with us for over a year, and then like the dad would just kind of bait the kid and keep their hopes up, I'm going to come to see you, where they don't, and there's no really excuse because sometimes they're in the area, they have other kids, they have other obligations, but it's just like, it's sad to see that, especially young kids, when they're soaking up things and really seeing how, I guess, adults in their lives are, acting or getting kind of, a sense of who they are, and how it is to be, a mom, a dad, other, other roles in your life, and a constant kind of letdown. I see that, a lot.
Mm, that's huge. And so I guess that brings me to the next one is like, at what age in your life, because you talked about your experience as a child and your experience of fatherhood, at what age did you realize the actual importance of fatherhood in your life?
I mean, I think it was younger. I mean, I feel the void of, I guess, not having my biological father in my life. Like, he was present, but he wasn't.
Mm-hmm.
So that void I felt filled with my grandfather. So he was the, positive male role model. Like, he was a God-fearing guy. I
Mm-hmm.
got my, I think, work ethic from him. He retired in Ukraine. He came here and did construction for another 20-25 years into his 70s, where people were coming over just to, on a work visa, like 20-year-olds. He did roofing, which isn't easy where I'm at, New Jersey. So it's either super cold when it gets into the fall,
Mm-hmm.
or in the summer you're in like 100-degree weather, putting roofs.
Mm.
So work ethic, he worked Monday to Saturday, really, and Sunday he went to church twice, and really not a complaint out of him ever. I don't even remember a complaint out of him when I was a kid. He passed away about 3 years ago, so it hit me kind of hard. It
Yeah.
was the first kind of major loss in my life, but I don't know how that necessarily impacted going through the grieving process. Towards the end of that, I was kind of like, down, but I remembered he was proud of me in terms of like telling me, you're taking care of all these kids, and what you're doing, what you accomplished in life. And I owed it, I think, to him, in my mind, to not kind of like be down on yourself or depressed, kind of achieve what I wanted to achieve and keep going forward, because that's what he would have wanted for me. So my grandfather turned out to be kind of, my male role model, and I'm glad, he filled that void in a positive way.
Man, that's wonderful. That's wonderful. And I guess one thing that I want to touch on as far as your experience is the importance of having that male role model. And mainly for me, I have a heart for mentorship, and the Lord's starting to develop that in me over time. Because for everybody listening, maybe you're like Roman, and you've tried to have kids, right, biologically, right, and maybe it's not working out for you for whatever reason. However, that doesn't mean that you can't fill that fatherhood role in the lives of, you know what I mean, young people who need it. And the reason I bring that up is because I didn't grow up, my dad wasn't in my life growing up. However, when I look back, I can pinpoint seasons of my life where there were male role models, whether it be a basketball coach, whether it be a security guard at the school. There were those guys who filled those roles in my life, in seasons of my life, and without them even knowing it. It's not like they took on that responsibility. They were just a positive male presence that in my life that taught me things about character and how to carry yourself and how to shake hands and look eye to eye when you're talking, you know what I mean, those little things. And so the fact that you had your grandfather in your life is, it just attests to the fact that that positive male presence, if you're somebody who lacks a biological father, latch on to those positive male role models in your life, because that could be that is one of the ways the Lord will fill that emptiness that you feel. And that's what I always thought there was a void. I always said, oh, there was this piece of me that was missing, but I realized that it was never missing. I always had the father figure that I needed in Jesus, but also Jesus placed men in my life over time that helped guide me and showed me the right way. You know what I mean? Getting into your experience, you know, if you don't mind, obviously, can you talk to us about your experience with the miscarriages that you talked about from, you know, from a husband's perspective, and how you learned to overcome those challenges for somebody who may be going through that as well?
Yeah, and obviously piggybacking of on what you say and transitioning into this, like I always say, which I got it from myself. I didn't come up. Everything in life is a lesson or a blessing.
Mm-hmm.
So you have to make the best out of a situation you're dealt. And like you said, sometimes people come into your life and you don't even, see them being as something, but they teach you a lot. And oftentimes it's that reflection after the fact. So,
Mm-hmm.
we got married. We decided obviously to start a family. We had a miscarriage. We went to kind of infertility treatments and started doing that in terms of kind of embryo transfer. We had an retrieval, spent well over $100,000 out of pocket on this whole,
Wow.
journey.
Yeah.
And I think like after going through one miscarriage is tough, but like at this point, six, it kind of like takes a piece out of you every time. Like you're kind of numb. The last one was, I think, was the hardest because it was the furthest on in terms of the pregnancy, and
Mm.
it happened during this whole nonsense COVID fiasco. So I had to sit in the parking lot when, my wife had to go into the infertility clinic, and they basically had to, cut the fetus out of her, and I couldn't be there to hold her hand or anything.
Yeah.
So it's one of those things, and it's hard from, I guess, the male perspective, because it's like hard on you, but then it's hard because you have to figure out how to be there for your spouse. And the spouse is kind of like twofold because it's happening to her body also, both. It's an emotional thing and a physical thing. So it's kind of, you feel helpless and kind of trapped in a way. And like, we kept trying. We got to, obviously, to six miscarriages, and we're still obviously naturally trying. We don't know if we're going to do another embryo transfer or not, but we thought about it, and obviously there's other ways to, start a family if you want to start a family. At that point, I think adoption was off the table because it's like, super expensive, like
Mm-hmm.
mid five figures to adopt, which is crazy, and similar if you do it overseas. So then we looked at, becoming foster parents, because we thought, if we don't necessarily get to adopt, we get to, impact kids, have kids in our home, at least create a safe, loving space for the time they are with us. So we went to an orientation, kind of went through the process. It took like 8 months, and technically we're fostered to adopt. So we have a child in our home and parental rights are terminated by the state. They would come to us first and ask us, are you willing to adopt this child based on, obviously, the bond and relationship that you've made. So that's
Mm.
kind of what we did. May 31st of 2018, we were formally licensed. The next day, two kids dropped off at our doorstep and basically figure it out. And in class, because you do about 40 hours in class with kind of like a caseworker that goes through like a whole training book, and how to handle situations, how to deal with the state. And it's one of those things, like a lot of stuff in life, where it's like, we're going to be there for you, everything is like sunshine and rainbows, and then it's like a scared straight thing. You get thrown into it, figure it out, there's nobody there for you, which
Mm.
is kind of a lot of situations in life. So we kind of figured out the situations and things that we've overcome in the whole process, and how we've helped kids along the way, and kind of a large part of that really have done it ourselves.
Wow. Man, I couldn't imagine. Like I told you before, like obviously that's, your experience is something that I can't relate to. But man, what I love about it is, like you said, the fact that just the principles of what happened. You had a challenge that you had to overcome, and like you mentioned earlier, instead of taking a negative and adding a negative, you looked for a way to take what what most people would see as a negative, and draw positivity out of it. And so, I mean, anybody who listens to this, reads your bio, reads the description that we're going to put on here, anybody can see that so much good, although it's such like it's a devastating thing to go through. So much good has come from that. And so whether we're talking about fatherhood, whether we're talking about whatever the case may be, I think that that's such a hard principle that people can grasp from this. A lot of people are dealing with illnesses, cancers, whatever the case may be, losing kids, you know what I mean? And so this thing that you and your wife have done is just such a great testimony to, okay, this happens and it's out of your control, but what is in your control? And then focus on that, and then draw the positivity out of what you can control. And so you guys took what the Lord gave you and said, okay, all right, Lord, this is what you've given us. This is what you bless us with. And so we're going to go and pursue this thing. And now you've been able to bless over 25 children. I think you said, was it 29?
29, yeah, almost 30.
That's amazing, man. That's amazing. I guess first off, I mean, I want to go back and just kind of again say thank you to you and to your wife, because everything that I want to see out of this nonprofit that my wife and I started, I mean, you guys are a living testimony to what I'd like to see come out of this. Just changing the lives of the people who need it. So thank you for what you guys have done and what you guys are doing. I guess my last thing for you is, for somebody who is going through this, and for somebody who's struggling with, I guess, fatherhood, right? How would you bring Jesus into that equation to that person? So you and I are talking, and I'm telling you, hey, I'm having a hard time. I don't know if I want to do this. I don't know if I want to stick around. I don't know if I can handle this, but I do believe in God. I do believe in Jesus. What would you tell me as far as the relationship that you have with Jesus and how it's impacted your relationship as a father and your life as a father? What advice would you give me? How would you try and talk me into sticking this thing out?
Yeah, I mean, just kind of like, God is love, Christ is love, and that love that he has for you should kind of emulate and reflect it if you want to truly live for Christ, and really surround yourself. Also, don't do it alone. Get a support system, God-fearing men, because I mean, one of the biggest things that I've seen in personal and professional development, and trying to walk in terms of kind of in faith and follow Christ, which people see that it's this like perfect journey. And if maybe you're a new Christian, or you've been kind of in the faith, or took that kind of commitment yourself since you were young, it's not, you fall, you have issues, but at the end of the day, it's kind of just showing up, getting back up, kind of being convicted to do better, and coming to the realization, what have you done, what have you sinned, kind of having God forget about forgive you, and forget about that, clean slate from that. I mean, he died for our sins. So really stating that just show up. It's not, you're not going to be perfect, you're not going to be there all the time, but just kind of like you mentioned, just be present, and just be positive in that sense. And the main thing I would say is find a group of people that are like-minded, or that are living a life that you're trying to live, because good character gets corrupted by bad company. And regardless how what your walk is with God, if you surround yourself with people that are doing something, or living a life that doesn't align with yours, and it's possibly detrimental to you, eventually they'll chip away on your character, regardless of who you are. Maybe you'll stop going to church, you'll fall into vices, so on and so forth. So having a support system, potentially meeting like a men's group, or having like a Bible study, and really having other fathers, or maybe other people that have been in a situation, that are have faith in their lives, that are have struggled, and still it is, life, I don't think, is easy. Anything in life isn't easy. It's a struggle, it's a journey. So really positioning yourself, and having at least one person holding you accountable in your journey as well.
That's huge. So yeah, for anybody listening, if you or anybody you know is struggling the fatherhood responsibility, I mean, the most important thing that you can do, like Roman was saying, is to find somebody who you can latch on to for that encouragement that you need. Because like you said, I mean, you don't want to go through it alone. You don't have to go through it alone. And, you know, just realize that we all, like, I wake up every day with, you know, just the thoughts in my head of, you know, okay, I have a son, and you know what I mean? Like, I'm responsible for him. I got to keep him safe. I got to teach him this. I got to do X, Y, and Z. I mean, we all are going through some kind of struggle as fathers, no matter how much money that you have, no matter how good it looks on the surface, right? And the only reason I bring those things up is because that's what our society tells us is, you know, the thing that we strive for to make everything seem like everything's okay. But essentially, fatherhood is more than what we see on the surface. Fatherhood is below the surface. It's an internal decision that you make, and then you allow the Lord to lead you going forward. So, man, Roman, again, thank you, brother. That was an amazing answer, amazing interview, because I just think somebody out there really needed to hear it. Especially someone like me, because I'm more introverted, right? So when I go through stuff, I grew up as an only child, and my mom worked night shift a lot. So whenever I had an issue, I just, you know, it wasn't really, it's not my first instinct to go talk to somebody. It's my first instinct to problem solve and then internalize. You know what I mean? And so as a father, I'm learning that, hey, I need to find that group of guys that I can be open with, because I can't do this by myself. And God doesn't want me to do it by myself. Man, that was huge. And brother, again, I appreciate you very much for being on here and making the time. For those of you that are watching, those of you that are listening, we'll have Roman's contact information, his social media platforms, his business information, all in the description of this video. If you are a father out there that needs somebody to reach out to, and you don't necessarily have anybody in your life, I'm always gonna put my contact information out there. You guys know how you can reach out to me if you're watching this or listening to this. But I mean, Roman, of course, I think that you're somebody that, you know, somebody shot you a message or an email just saying, hey, you know, I need advice on X, Y, and Z when it comes to fatherhood. I feel like you're somebody that would be available for that, right?
Yeah, I mean, I've personally and professionally, I think I've given at this point 6 figures of information for free,
Yeah.
regardless of who's asking me. So I mean, in life and in general, I try to treat anybody in my situation, especially being there where people weren't necessarily there for me. Like you said, you were coming from, you know, an introverted situation, and oftentimes men compartmentalize their feelings and what they're about. So I
Mhm.
think kind of like having an outlet for that. So anybody that reaches out to me about anything, or if they're thinking about becoming a foster parent, kind of giving you the scared straight basically approach, and not necessarily sugarcoating it, because oftentimes where people don't give you that, you know, I guess tough love per se, and just said everything's going to be all right. Well, you know, majority of life, whatever you plan out isn't necessarily going to go your way. You just have to adapt, you know, and make do and take the best out of things of every situation.
Amen. Amen. Well, again, Roman, thank you, brother. This has been wonderful. I'm excited to put this out there for people to benefit from. At the end of the day, we always just look to impact at least one person out there, and then just pray that the Lord allows it to grow and spread from there. So I think this has been great. I'm excited, and those of you that are watching and listening, make sure you reach out, check out his social media pages and his business pages. Like I said, it'll be in the descriptions. All right. As always, thank you guys for being here.